And yeah, she's still painting a lot.
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
The original one from back in 2020.
Hey, Joe.
Well, it's a great time of year. Good job. For transition of the album is official.
Okay, I was kind of confused by your email. So I was trying to get this, so what you said over house.
Yeah, that was. No, I just wanted to clarify. The action package was a revision, our revision. Hello there. How are you doing? So what I'm hoping serves as a discussion. Just as well.
Well, how are you doing? Days are off.
Yeah.
We ready?
Yeah, 2 minutes before 2, but I think we're good. We're live now.
Oh, we're live, okay. I'd like to call our October 12th Town Council meeting to order. Can we have a pledge of allegiance, please? Thank you, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Roll call. Ian?
Mayor Labriola,
Here.
Burkett,
Here.
Ms. Conley,
Here.
Mr. Moffitt,
Here.
Dr. Parker. Here. Ms. Tillerson,
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
We have one set of minutes from our September 7th meeting. Could I have a motion to approve?
Second?
Discussion?
There are two minor grammatical errors that I pointed out to Petra. That's strictly, just housekeeping.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Mayor's update. Just somewhat of a follow-up from the September 7th meeting. If you recall, I received a call from the applicant, and we sent out a e-blast on the 16th of September. In that, we noted that the applicant was changing their request for annexation. And they had at that time submitted it to the county for to be resurveyed, so that the site, this 82-acre site, would be divided between what we had seen at the September 7th meeting between commercial and residential. That the survey would be just identifying the commercial site. We have not heard anything. We have not received anything. So as of we sit here today, we still have not received anything from the applicant. Now, we have talked with the applicant, and I know they're working on it and committed to bringing an application, an annexation application forward. So anyway, that's just an update. And once we receive it, we will certainly send it out to the community at large. Okay. And I think those are the things I wanted to note. Citizen comments? Yes, sir. If you could introduce yourself and your address.
Of course. Good afternoon. My name is Doug Benham. I'm a property owner at 119 Ocean Course Drive in Ocean Park. I'm here to discuss the proposed changes in the town's noise ordinance, which are noted in tab 6 of your meeting materials. So why are you considering changes to a noise ordinance which was amended less than a year and a half ago? An ordinance that unambiguously defined as illegal amplified music which could be heard off your property. I submitted is because the resort objected to complying with the ordinance. Why do I say that? On June 18th, I sent an email to the resort asking that they comply with the noise ordinance for an event at the Ocean Course that evening. An hour and a half later, I received an email from the town administrator notifying me that challenges had been made to the ordinance and that the ordinance was not going to be enforced between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. This was a 180-degree turn from previous communications from the town administrator. I hope that during your discussion period, you are transparent as far as why we're revisiting the noise ordinance and why valid and unambiguous ordinance has not been enforced for the last 4 months. We are now presented with a proposed noise ordinance which is ambiguous and provides significantly less protection for residents against noise pollution. It is a proposal that provides less protection than similar ordinances in Sea Island, Hilton Head, Pawleys Island, Seabrook Island, and even Charleston County. It is ironic that Kiowa Island residents would have more protection against noise if the town of Kiowa Island did not exist. Why do I say the proposal is ambiguous? Section A defines prohibited noise as, and this is part of it, any noise which substantially interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of persons of ordinary sensibilities. Well, just what the heck does that mean? Who's going to make that determination? And how is this an improvement over the current ordinance? Section B sets a 60 decibel limit, but only between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Several things are wrong about this. First, information presented at your April 2020 meeting indicated that among 118 cities represented, the average night decibel level allowed was 52. Why are you allowing an above average amount? Second, the decibel measurement is only on the A scale, which measures mid-level frequencies and minimizes the low bass frequencies, which are most annoying and dangerous to health. If we have to have a decibel threshold, it should also include the C scale, which measures bass. It should also be noted that those same cities had an average daytime limit of 57 decibels. Not only do we not have a daytime limit, we have ambiguous language which ultimately will not be enforced. Section C of the proposal, which deals with amplified music, is the most serious retreat of resident protections. The current ordinance prohibits amplified music which is cast upon community streets or upon the private property of others. That's what's in the May 2020 ordinance. That's what was widely discussed and disseminated and approved. This is just common sense. No one wants to hear music from their neighbors, be they residents or renters, construction crews, from golf carts, or might I say, if the wind is blowing in the right direction, from weddings happening over half a mile away. This policy is easy to understand and to enforce. The proposal does away with this standard and instead substitutes the ambiguous language of Section A and the too high 60 decibel level. Why would you do this? How does this benefit the residents of Kiowa Island? Why would you afford us less protections than other communities? Do any of you want to listen to the music of others when you're sitting on your deck or feel the vibrations of their bass coming into your house? We are all entitled to the quiet enjoyment of our homes, and the proposed ordinance is a significant step backwards. Kiowa Island is a community of several thousand residents who deserve strong protection against noise pollution. It is not a company town where a commercial enterprise chooses which ordinance it will follow. I encourage you to reject this draft and institute a meaningful noise ordinance that achieves the quality of life that Kiowa residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. We have two items under consent, carryovers from our September 7th meeting. I can take them both at the same time. So could I have a motion to approve item A, was ordinance 2021-11, and item B, ordinance 2021-12.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. this is a fun one. This is a request to consider approval of support to the new ER that MUSC is constructing. I think all of you are familiar with the project. I'll give you the slides. Very good. Well, while they're working on that, recall we've had some presentations about, you know, the project being here and the importance of development, the importance of funding. This provides us the opportunity to really take you know, somewhat of a leadership role in terms of working with MUSC and designating a specific site, a particular site on that, on the new ER for the town. So, Stephanie, do you have anything to add? You've had some conversations with the CEO.
Yeah, Mayor and members of council, I've had conversations. So Councilwoman Ms. Conley is the one that initially asked council if we consider or want to be able to provide or do naming rights for the new ER facility. When they had their presentation at River Course, I believe you attended one. Yes, several of you may have also attended either virtual or in person. And that's where you've kind of thought this would be a great idea. So I was asked to look into it. I talked with their giving person, and they had very excited, of course, that the town, expressed an interest in possibly partnering with MUSC in the form of naming rights. So after a couple of months, I've talked with them, looked at the various levels, and so one of the recommendations is for the town of Kiawah Island to consider the $1 million partnership with them over 5 years. It would be for the town of Kiawah Island garden. And just to give you an idea, they sent a photo. That is what the facility looks like. And then the corner there would be kind of the town of Kiawah Island gardening area. And I think the next photo, there was two. Just to kind of give you an idea, and that's looking at it inside, and of course the helipad, and then kind of inside that area you can see, and it'll be overlooking a garden. So that would be that space there is what the $1 million would go towards. We would have an opportunity to be able to work with them in terms of the design of the garden. If you so choose to go ahead with that, with approving that, we will work with their designer architect in terms of the look and feel of that space. Right now in my letter to you all, in terms of the cost, so I'm not sure if you said this, Mayor, so if you did, I'm sorry for repeating this. So in regards to the funding costs, as you all are aware, the town through the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, we had received a good chunk of money, and there's a list of things that Dorota went over several months ago with you all of what we can use those funds for. This particular project, being a hospital, would qualify. So we are receiving $880,000. We received so far the first half of that, $440,000. We'll get the remaining half next year. So if you guys so choose to approve this, you could use all of those funds, a portion of those funds, to help pay for this cost. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to. Yes, sir.
I can't tell from the pictures you showed on the screens, nor in here, where this garden actually is. Is it all this space out here?
It's all this space out here.
So if I look here, it's here?
I couldn't tell you if it's going to be all of that space. He's pointing to the entire area. Yeah, he's pointing. I don't know if it's going to be that all of that space or just kind of the green area, because part of it's going to be the marsh.
Right.
So it backs up to the marsh. So there's going to be an area that we have that they're going to make into a garden overlooking. So essentially our space is overlooking the marsh, and there'll be a garden area within that space. So it will not be the entire space you're looking at, but it'll be that, essentially that facility space along with the garden outdoors. So we're not spending $1 million on just plants. It is the, I think it's the, I don't have it in me, but I believe it's actually the physical therapy space that we're actually going to essentially help build, and we will have
Well, that's a different one.
That's different.
The Town of Kiowa Island Physical Therapy Lobby is a different item.
It's a different item, yeah.
Right.
It's the garden that we're doing, so the high traffic area that provides outdoors,
Yep.
yeah, space, I can't read without my glasses, but it's the outdoor garden area, but it's not going to be all of the plantings, no.
I'm just curious how big a garden space we get for $1 million.
Well, once you get $1 million is an emergency room across the street.
Right.
That's correct.
Stephanie,
That's correct. And it's not all just a garden area, but if you want to know specifically what the garden area and space, but no, it's not going to just be just plants for that $1 million.
Isn't their plan that they have to raise 12 or 14?
They have to raise
$million
half the money to be able to start to break ground. So I believe the project total cost is about 24 million
Yeah.
or so is what they said. So before they can break ground, they would like to be able to raise half, so about 12 million of that before they would start work.
Yeah, so.
And so this, I think, gives a commitment from the town's perspective that, of course, this being on the Seabrook side, but this is also obviously a commitment that we, as a town, support. We welcome them coming here. It's going to service the Sea Islands, Seabrook, Wamala, Kiowa. So this is a great service that's going to benefit the entire community, not just Kiowa Island.
Right. Yeah, my view is the naming rights are kind of incidental. It's nice. but
Right.
If they needed $1 million to get this thing underway, the importance to our community is, I think if we've got the money, we give them $1 million. I think it'd be nice to have a garden, but I
Right.
think the important thing is we need to get this structure built.
And the 880,000, of course, that we're getting from the art money. So if we, to put the difference is 120 that we will have to put in. The 880,000 is, of course, money that we didn't expect. Right now, we have a pretty healthy budget. So we were able to, through the art money, take the 880,000, put in our general funds. So this will be just essentially money that we.
When I attended that meeting, I was, first of all, very impressed with the services they will be providing, but also as being involved in public safety for the past 3 years, I realize how important it is for our residents to have access to these services immediately. And right now, it's a little bit less than immediate. And if you hear people discussing this, everyone is very excited about it and very interested in using it. So I think if we can partner with them and understand that Kiowa will be a prime participant, that contributing that money to them towards the development is very important. And this 880,000 was coming as a result of help from the, for COVID, is that what it's?
Right.
The 880,000?
Yeah, it's part of, some
And
other
there's-
things, but yeah.
Yeah, and there wasn't really anything else pressing that we needed to use that money for.
Well, again, like we said, we have a pretty healthy budget.
I
I mean, we could, that money could go to other things, but we have a good budget.
Well, I think the important thing is two for one, the money is going to, a resource is going to be available to Kiowa, Seabrook, Wadmalaw, Johns Island residents. So I think that's what's wonderful about this. And secondly, outdoor areas, and we'll see how big the area is so beneficial to patients, to staff, to families. So it's a perfect
Into the environment.
fit, in terms of what we're going to be able to contribute to.
And
So-
for the town to be an environmental
Right.
community that was within you guys, of course, philanthropic investment opportunities. There were 4. It was the emergency room at $2 million over 5 years, the physical therapy room, $2 million over 5 years, the physical therapy lobby, $1 million over 5 years, and of course, the $1 million over 5 years for the garden. Yes, sir.
Pursuant to, I have two things I want to comment on. One is, we're talking about the benefit to the community above and beyond the emergency room in terms of primary care. But I noticed in their little flyer in here, they talk about their new concierge medicine program. And do they intend to have something other than a concierge program? Because otherwise, they're not really going to be providing primary care to the vast majority of the service area that they're talking about. Because that is a very limited model of medical practice.
Yeah, I would probably direct a lot of those questions directly to MUSC They're gonna, depending on if this is approved, they will come back next month. I believe they are going to do other than just concierge care, but I don't want to say 100%. I know they're gonna also be working very closely with Seafields across the way and providing services there. So their partnership with Seafields, that location, I think it would, I think that they will be able to answer more in detail in terms of all the various levels of services they'll provide, to include an EMS truck that would be parked there. So.
That's my next question, is because we've had conversations in the past about the town funding a EMS truck actually being physically located on the island. And I wonder if we could split the difference here in terms of the ARP money and use part of that to fund the physical needs that we would have to put a truck here in Charleston County in conjunction with funding the emergency room. And so like maybe taking half of the ARP funds and putting it towards the emergency room up front and then amortizing out the other, $500,000 difference over 4 years. So that would be on our budget, like $125,000 line item for the next 4 years, which is very doable, and then get the ambulance here as soon as possible.
I'll let the mayor speak on that. We
Yeah.
did meet with them.
Just a couple of comments, Scott, and those are all good points. My recollection, and I think Stephanie we need to verify it, is that this building will relocate the current physician that's on site here. So his service is going to be moving over into that building.
Dr. Book will just go over there.
Yes. However, in that building, they are going to have physician offices. And I think they have plans for a mix of specialty and subspecialty and primary care. That was the extent of which they shared with me, that's their intent. And of course, they have to find out. They have to get physicians, they have to recruit them, they have to see who's going to be able to go over there. So I think they clearly have intention of having primary care in that building. How often, how many hours, things like that is still too early to tell. But his office is moving over there.
That, once again, that goes back to my point, though. Dr. Booker, concierge, is not even in the service.
No,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
And it's not to be a substitute or even a perception, it's going to be a primary, okay.
One of the.
Just let me think, I'm sorry. But number two, Stephanie and I've had now a couple of meetings with the senior leadership of MUSC. And we've talked about, and we've talked also with the county's EMS service. So they know both the county and MUSC are concerns relative to time. And the leadership of the county have received some significant additional funding increases from the county. And I don't recall those numbers, but they were rather dramatic in terms of what the...
And staff.
And staff. They got additional staff, they got salary increases for the staff. Their recruitment efforts for the staff have been just phenomenal. I think, if I'm saying this right, they have the highest rate of pay for EMS tech in the state. So they're recruiting really well. They asked us, hold back. We think, we being in the county EMS, we're going to be able to deliver our services in a superior fashion than they've had before. So that's the position.
How do they define superior?
Well, that's my word.
time.
The response times. They're going to be better. So they're committed to that, and we told them that we carefully monitor that, and okay. In talking with the folks from MUSC, they have inter-hospital transfers, and they have, again, I'm blank on the name of the company that they use.
It's Global Partners, the same as Air Med Care services that we have
provide all
now.
that. And we met with him, the fellow that heads that up. So we impressed upon him how we could help. And quite frankly, he's going to be giving us a proposal in terms of what we as a town could do for them or with them to improve services. So I think we've let it known to both the county, MUSC, both directly in terms of this as a service provider and then also this global, the inter-hospital. So we may find ourselves, well, they're going to be operational fall of 23. We may find ourselves in a situation in 23, 24, 25 where this would be something that we may have to step up to. Right now, both of them being the county and MUSC is, you know, no one's they're just hearing our issues rather than saying, if you could only help us. They both seem to indicate they have plans. So that's all I, you know, can share. But anyway, that's a.
If I could add to that, we did meet with the EMS people, and we agreed that we would give them, they had a new system that was starting August 24th, and we agreed that we would allow them until the end of the year to continue to improve the response time. If that doesn't work, then the plans change for January. If it works, then there's no need to have another vehicle here on the property.
Correct. Right now, what they're doing is, as Ms. Conley have said, they currently have essentially a facility on the island now. They
Right.
have Medic 10, and what they've done is they partner with St. John Fire Department. When I say partner, I'm just really talking about they're housing a truck there along with staff there. Ideally, they would like to try to find land behind the gate to build a facility. Told them that's very limited. And could be expensive, but they still have hopeful that they could find some land and build. If they can't, they will still right now, they're doing it as a pilot, but they're at, I get the station numbers confused. I think Station 6, the one on Governor's, I think that's 6. They're there now, so ideally, they'll have a truck there all the time, and they'll have EMT or paramedic there. When they don't, the truck can't run because St. John's cannot run it. But right now, they're committed to be able to have staff there. So right now, through the Public Safety Committee, they are monitoring those response times. When we have an outlier, we find out why, what happened, and if you know, try to learn from that. But so far, the county realized that Kiowa, we pay a lot of taxes there. A lot of money leave Kiowa. And so without us having to pay additional funds for services that they feel they should provide, they want the opportunity to fix the problem. So we said, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's very good.
I was impressed, Scott, honestly, meeting with them. You know, they explained their triage methodology. They explained how they categorize their patients. They talked about, as Stephanie said, their outliers. I mean, they really seem to be engaged in terms of trying to find reasons why, you know, their times weren't being hit. So, and it quite frankly, it centered around staff from their perspective. So their hope is that what they were able to do or what they were able to obtain in terms of the county that will resolve that.
Well, I'll accept all that, but having the city attorney has sat on the other side of that table, representing the hospitals in those conversations before, and I realize that the bureaucracy of the hospital can groan on and groan on.
Well, I'm not saying.
That was your hospital. Our hospital never droned on. We were efficient.
We've been working hard on this.
Oh, I know you have, and for years.
Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any additional discussion?
No, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Very well done. Thank you. We have 2 members of the Arts Council, Dylan and Kimberly Adele. No, Dylan Keith and Kimberly Adele, excuse me. Those are for our 2 new members.
Yes.
Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6. Oh, item C, it's not in your packet, to consider approval of Steve Rolando to the St. John's Fire District Commission. Could I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Noise. Would you be so kind as to put some context to this issue of noise, where it's been, how it's here, what took place with prior administration, et cetera, that would be helpful, I think, for all of us to understand that. And I think Dean and you and Mary Ann may have had some history with this, but I think it's,
goes back to 6 years ago that I can fill in.
Oh, well, I don't know about 6 years ago, but I can tell you what happened 2 years ago,
But we also had
Or
2 years ago.
a year and a half.
Timbers.
So when I came on board, the noise ordinance had had a very problematic sentence in it. It deemed a violation any noise that crossed a property line at all. And that really wasn't workable. I don't know where that language was originated from, but it clearly had to be dealt with. At the same time, there was no objective measurement existing in our noise ordinance, which is the decibel level measurements. If you exceed 80 decibels, you're in violation. So we took out the objectionable sentence and added and have it a subjective violation that is just similar to language you can find in any other municipal ordinance, which is, let's see, causes to be made continue any loud noise of such character, intensity, and or duration as to disturb, injure, or endanger the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of others, which is a subjective call to be made by someone out in the field.
when was that, Joe, that was, you replaced?
June of 2020. In addition, we added an objective decibel limit as a violation only after 11 p.m. If you register more than 60 decibels. Now, and to back up just a smidgen, what I presented to council were two alternatives. What they chose was the simplest change, and that's all we really changed back in June of 2020, which was fine. I proposed a bit more comprehensive change, which is in your packet. So that's what I had proposed back in 2020 as a little bit more vigorous revisions to the ordinance.
So the words comfortable enjoyment and ordinary sensibilities was part of the discussion of June of 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
And I feel comfortable, so to speak, with that language. I think what we're talking about here today is more of a tweaking and a policy-oriented discussion rather than a legal-oriented. I took care of the things that concerned me from a legal standpoint back in June of 2020. And we did it in the simplest way possible. And the town has a very simple, straightforward noise ordinance right now, which is perfectly legal and acceptable from my point of view. There is an issue, I think, that Stephanie and I have discussed at length, and that issue is the question of, do we really need a subjective violation? Should we just go with objective decibel level violations and do away with the subjective violations? The problem that can arise with subjective violations is our officers are called with a complaint and they go out in the field and the sound doesn't reach the decibel limit, or it's before 11 p.m. when there is no decibel limit. And the officer might have a disagreement with a complainant as to whether the noise is endangering the comfort, repose, and health of the neighbors. And that officer's got to make a subjective call out in the field. So, as a policy matter, y'all can decide that we don't want to have that kind of subjectivity floating out there, and we just need to have an objective set of rules with not a lot of wiggle room. And if you go over the decibel limit, it's a violation. And if you're under it, it's not a violation. All right, now.
Can I ask you a question real quick, just for clarity?
Sure.
You said a couple of times the endanger the comfort, repose, health, peace, and safety of others, but you've got that crossed out here, and you've got different languages.
I know, that's because that's an older version. I would almost, that is not extremely helpful, what's in the packet.
Okay,
I'm
so
just going to tell you.
Okay.
We are right now, we have that language is in our current statute. It got passed. That comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of others.
That's what's in it today.
Yes.
You're not proposing to put this red.
Yes.
You're proposing to put what's in the red in this?
No.
It's already in there, basically.
No. There's two different sentences.
The existing is lined out. The
Right.
red
The red is proposed.
red is proposed.
Because I thought before we had a discussion about the words like repose don't mean a whole lot, but because the red says, sensibilities occupying, owning, and controlling nearby properties or persons making use of public properties for their intended purpose. That's, in my mind, a little clearer.
Okay, well, you were right. That is, it's still a subjective thing. That is the language I had proposed back in 2020, yes. And certainly, that is language that was crafted a little more in line with some of the model ordinances and other towns' ordinances that are out there. For whatever reason, council at the time decided not to do this change.
But Joe,
Let me
I
ask-
get
But-
troubled with the fact of your reference to subjective, and when it's endangering comfort, repose, health, or comfortable enjoyment of ordinary sensibility, they're both subjective. I'm just.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
And that's why I'm not, what we have now is very similar to what was proposed back in 2020 on the subjective thing. And the question, I think, what I would like, and why we made this a work session instead of a vote, was we'd like some thoughts from council as to whether we should have any subjective violation at all. And if you think we should keep a subjective violation, then we can tweak it. We can use what was proposed back in 2020. We can keep what we have now.
Is there a reason why this came up again? Was there a particular problem?
Yeah, I think there have been some, Stephanie unfortunately would be better able to answer that, but I think there's been some,
Answer, Mary Ann, is yes.
yes. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Mr. Benham?
Ben, yes, I think that's part of why this has come up again.
Well, yes and no. There have been, but I knew when a year ago, that this was kind of like a hanging issue. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to put like
I don't want to get
one of our
too,
community members that it's, the reason
That's-
why we're
I'm
here
not-
because of this.
I-
It clearly just exacerbates the fact that
Yes.
we don't have language that, when we read this, it seemed like it needed to be improved upon. And I think
well,
it's-
certainly in 2020, and
Yes.
we can do it again. And I'll tell you again, as y'all know, I'm also the attorney for Folly Beach. Our noise ordinance has been changed and debated so many times out there. This is not an unusual issue to have. And it can be difficult.
Thank you.
And which is why we kind of want to just have a discussion of, and again, I think for us, the biggest issue, and if we could get some guidance on that issue, is should we keep a subjective measure in place or just go with decibel limits? The benefit of the subjective, of keeping it a subjective measure, and why most cities have both. Let me make that very clear. Most cities have this subjective language that's something along the lines of what we have now and the proposal from 2020. And then they also have a separate decibel level limit. And we have that too. It's just much simpler than what's in a lot of towns. And the reason, let me just finish this thought. The reason you have both is because it's not hard to imagine a noise that becomes quite annoying even though it doesn't reach 80 decibels.
Right.
It could be constant hum, thumping, work, whatever. And if you don't have that subjective violation, then you can't, and it doesn't reach
You don't have any recourse.
the decibel, you don't have anything, the town can't do anything. So I can tell you, I mean, and I've looked at this, many cities on the coast, and they all have both. But that leaves some subjective decision-making out in the field. I mean, am I, Stephanie? Okay. So there's kind of those conflicting interests. And then beyond that, there's so many issues. There's choosing the actual decibel levels. There's, do we have different, currently we don't have a daytime decibel limit. Certainly that's a very common thing to have.
Well, how loud is 60 decibels? Give me a frame of reference.
Normal conversation.
So like we're having now, that's 60
Like
decibels?
the library is 45 decibels, normal conversation is 60, a toilet flushing is 75 to 85, and the restaurant is 90 decibels. These are all measured on the scale. A balloon popping is 157 decibels, a jet engine is 120. So says the rectangle of knowledge.
And then,
Thank you.
as an addition to that, and this is something I tried, I mean, for better or worse, council just accepted. I plugged in a decibel number based on some material that I've had, but it's wide open for adjustment. But let me tell you what the material I have, and this is a report it's a page from a model noise code that was developed a few years ago, but it has a survey of all the decibel levels. And the most common nighttime levels are between 45 and 55, right? The most common being 50. The most common daytime decibel limits are 55 and 60. And indeed, 55 is the most common daytime level limit. So, I mean, that's what I'm going by, just what other cities have done. And I could make a copy of this chart, but I've kind of summarized, and there are many outliers there. But there's this common area of nighttime between 45 and 55 and daytime at 55 or 60. And you can adjust that for different areas of the island. A lot of people do that. And Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach, Charlotte, 3 of the cities I've looked at, all of their noise ordinances are 10 plus pages long to give you an idea of how deep this can all get. And you can get into the DBC levels. You can do all that.
It seems to me, Joe, that,
Yeah.
this is just in my head, you can have subjective language, and to me, subjective language should apply to those circumstances that are truly unique. Something's taking place that isn't planned, that isn't called for, that's unique. But it seems to me that we're doing a disservice to the community in its broadest context. The people that live here, the people that work here, the businesses that do business here. In the old days, when you had all of vacant land around our golf courses and the clubhouses, and you had vacant land around the sandcastle, and you had vacant land around Mingo Point, and you had vacant land around whatever, maybe it wasn't such a big deal. Well, heck, there's homes built right adjacent to it. So It seems to me that we do a disservice to everybody if we don't set, so that if you're planning a wedding, whatever you're going to do, if you're going to buy property, and you're going to buy property and you know that you're somehow adjacent to something that's going to hold events, we do a disservice if we don't tell them, well, by the way, you're going to live here, and over there they hold events and they have bands, or a family that contacts the resort and they say they want to have a band. Okay, but there's limits in terms of you can have a 4-piece band or a 40-piece band. It's like we're doing a disservice to everybody if we don't set what the rules are. And I'm not saying it's putting our code officers in an awkward position, but it's more importantly, it's putting the community in an awkward position. So I think the subjective is fine, but the subjective should be for those unique circumstances. Other than that, there should be a platform in terms of everybody. Now, I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar. I don't have that book of knowledge of levels and A, B's, and C's, but I think that's something that we would look for guidance from you and what they are. Then those are just not so much the rules, but that's the platform. That's what everybody understands. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then you live with that. Either you want to, I don't know.
I have a question, Joe. In your review of all the noise ordinance laws around coastal communities, and they've got these night times of 50 decibels and daytimes of 55 to 60 decibels. Well, is there some distance measurement, or are you adjacent to the neighborhood?
That's another factor in all of this, where you go to take the measurement. And in my experience with this and dealing with it in other cities, I've always felt that the best place is the property line of the complainant.
Okay.
Right now, I think we have the inside the complainant's, at the nearest complainant's property line. That's what we have. That was my suggestion. But it is a factor to consider, and some might have, I tell you, some might have inside the complainant's house, but that presents difficulties of getting the measurement, right? You could have X number of feet from the property line of where the noise originates, which is something that we considered a lot on Folly, and it became surprisingly difficult to figure out how to measure that 50 feet out and where it would be. So I've always felt the easiest way to determine where you're going to measure it is from the property line of the complainant.
So,
Does that make sense?
so
I missed that.
Yeah, well, it's an issue. It's definitely
are
an
there
issue.
provisions in this for exceptions to that? So, for example, let's suppose somebody's having a wedding reception at the sandcastle out by the pool, and it's going to go until midnight. Is there an exception?
No.
Is there a mechanism for exception? There's not today, right?
There is not today. There is, if we really want to drill down on events, I would be more than happy to draft up a separate section that deals with events. A lot of places you got to submit an application. You have to have a.
Yeah, then you get all kinds of notifications and probably, that might
Well, I'm just saying that's an
I
option.
get it.
But I think if you have in my experience, if you have a decibel level and you set a time for it, that time's pretty much set in stone unless there's some sort of variance request. right? I mean, that's kind of the
And you have to have
point.
a provision for the direction.
It's not fair to the neighbors to like, well, we might end at 11 tonight, or we might end at midnight.
Right.
And honestly, that 11 o'clock can be adjusted. I mean, and that was the issue we had on Folly. Was it we're going to have a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock? In fact, we have different times for different days. The weekends, it's till 11. Weekdays, it's till 10.
Well, I'll get back to my point. I think there's a difference between a neighbor that lives here and across the street is a short-term rental and it gets noisy at night and they're complaining or whatever. I mean, and it's episodic and, it happens, versus businesses that do business here. That their purpose is to do business here. That they're talking with customers and consumers from outside this area that are going to do, it can't be subjective. I mean, that's not, just can't be. I mean, it's like, we're doing a disservice to everybody. We're doing a disservice to the people that.
Can you marry the subjective and the objective together and say, it's noise that's really irritating the beekeepers out of me, as evidenced by, and then put it in.
Yeah, there's a couple of answers I have for that. If you really want to limit the subjective, and one of the towns that I was looking at has this, the subjective only comes into play if an officer decides it's too loud and asks them to turn it down, and they don't. So that would be a very limited subjective, but somewhat effective. I mean, you're giving the person an opportunity to cure it. The other thing, and this is in my proposal back from 2020, is you set the decibel, you have a subjective thing. So this is annoying and you're in violation. And the decibel level sets up a presumption. So if you're over 60 decibels, it's presumed that you are making an annoying noise in violation when you go to court. So that's another way to kind of blend the two. But I'm going to say that 9 times out of 10, most of these towns are just, we have the subjective language, you have an annoying noise, it's a violation, and then we have separately the DBA. But we can certainly blend them, and that's what I tried to do with having the presumption once you hit that decibel level that there's a violation. And it's a rebuttable presumption. I mean, the owner, the person making the noise can come in and try to say, well, it wasn't annoying for X, Y, and Z reason. And if you could expound on, Mayor, what you mean by the difference between commercial, there's short-term rental noise, which can be a problem. But are you talking about a commercial establishment?
I'm talking about subjective. There's 4 houses on the street that I live on. The rest of them are short-term rentals. So if there's a bunch of kids running around making all kinds of noise, I should have the opportunity to call. To me, that's subjective. That
Yes.
moment in time that's disturbing to my family, the enforcement officer comes out. Episodic, it happens. My point is that there's businesses on this island, businesses that do business with the outside community, that have weddings and events and monies change hands. It's a commercial activity. We should be crystal clear to everybody what the standard is, what the expectation for the business is going to be dealing with an outside family to have a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a graduation. It shouldn't be people coming in from, Philly, and they're bringing in all these people only to find out, and they're signing all the agreements and money's change hands. It's too loud. How the hell do they know it was too loud? They're just following the agreement that was presumed. They say, and then an officer goes out there and he says, I think it's too loud. It shouldn't be, I think it's too loud. It either is too loud or it's not too loud. And that's all I'm saying, Joe.
Yeah. No.
To me, there's a difference between,
I get what you're saying, no, and I totally agree.
Maybe somebody's pushing the envelope, but I think we just put everybody in an awkward position by not knowing what that is, within a relative range. I mean, I'm talking about, again, how these things are measured, but to me, that's the difference between subjective and objective.
Yeah,
And ma'am, sir, you bought a house and you live now right next to the sandcastle, right next to Mingo Point, right next to whatever. And they're holding normal events that fall within that. And God bless them, I don't mean to say this, but then they shouldn't be just calling up and criticizing when people are conducting business as they think falls within the guidelines of the town's ordinances. Just like for everything else, whether they have open pit fires or, I'm not sure what all we govern, but they just can't, we set parameters for all of that. This, to me, should just be another simple parameter. That's what I'm saying.
well, no, and I totally, and that's a valid concern, and it, you know, the question then becomes, so, how do you want to deal with that limit?
Oh, I understand.
Is
I
it a-
understand that. I understand that. We have to.
So right now, we have an 11 p.m., past 11 p.m., it's got to be under 60 decibels.
I understand that, yeah.
We can adjust that time. We can adjust that decibel level.
No, I understand that.
I'm
I'm just getting to the subjective objective. I don't know
So,
enough
so
about.
to keep it really simple, Mayor, I mean, it looks like to me that it's pretty objective, at least the way we're talking about it here, between 11 and 7. Pretty objective.
I agree.
60, above 60, you're in trouble. Below 60, you're good to go.
Yep.
It would seem, and whether 60 is the right number or not, it's a different discussion. But wouldn't it be just as simple to say, and oh, by the way, between 7 and 11, it's 50 or 60 or whatever. And that way you've got a noise limit 24 hours a day. You're either in compliance or not. And then the only subjective part comes with the guy doing the 35 decibel hammer next door for 6 hours.
Exactly.
And that's a subjective thing, because you're never gonna, I don't think you can legislate every noise condition to where it's gonna be a fail or a pass.
Yep.
Because there's, we've got kids, no, they're not kids, we've got adults that live across the fairway from us that watch TV on their back porch. And we can hear their TV at night. And the reason we can hear it at night is because it is deadly silent.
Sure, cares.
You don't hear it during the day. And so, does it bother us? Not really. But it probably fails this 60, if it's normal conversation tone, it's probably violating that 60 decibel limit.
Every construction site on this town is in violation of that ordinance.
Well, I think
Well, that's another.
that's an exception.
Well, and to be clear, that's another section I floated to address that, and it was not taken up by council at the
But
time.
I would think that if you're gonna have, if the decibel limit is the measure, that you have one for nighttime and you have one for daytime. And
I'm concerned with daytime. Are people really bothered by daytime noise, except for nuisance noise?
well, I'm just saying, to give if we're concerned with the compliance officers having to make judgments on the fly, at least give them a basis for something that is extraordinary. Maybe you make the daytime number 70 decibels, so they at least have a level that is without question.
I would say jet.
Well, maybe not yet though, but but I guess my point is if you've got a level, a decibel level that is going to be a violation hurdle, why wouldn't you have one that covers the nighttime and the daytime?
Do we get complaints about daytime noise?
No, for the most part, we do not. I mean, there may be, I think during the daytime, everyone has a reasonable expectation of level of noise. And then also there's so much other stuff going on that the noise really does not, it's not a factor. I think again, like you said, it's later in the early evening, maybe 8, 9 o'clock when things start to, construction, traffic is gone. And you just hear, the crickets, and all of a sudden, unfortunately, depending on where you live, noise could be more of an issue than maybe another person within the same area. So during the daytime, as far as I know and recall, we get very, very little
I just hate to
complaints.
legislate in a period where it's not.
Not a problem.
An issue.
Right.
We have the only issues that I've had some concern in terms of the daytime. This is really with owners who like on weekends or on Fridays, and some of them is with short-term rentals. They will like landscape noise or people blowing to start at about 9 or 10 o'clock so their guests can sleep in. That's about the level of complaint.
I
And it's
agree
normally
with
the
that.
owners are not here. It's really
Right.
short-term rentals and their guests are like, they're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. Those are the type of complaints that I've received for daytime noise.
Well, I'm just saying, as a matter of discussion, let's not over-legislate here.
I agree,
But I
Dan.
do think a standard for the evening, and I think one issue we ought to talk about is 11 o'clock.
Right.
And it's 60 decibels, right?
And it's
Should it
both
be
of
11
those.
or 10?
I do think the end of the property, inside the house, we had, my house is so soundproof, you could blow up a bomb outside and I couldn't hear it. But if I'm out on the porch where people get disturbed, then
Right.
I want that.
And I will say that, I mean, the nighttime, the most common nighttime, just to reiterate what I said, the most common nighttime noise decibel limit is 50. There are a good many at 55. There are a good many at 45. So just so you have we are a little on the high end there. And that's just the way it happened. I put in a number.
Discussion about that.
There was some discussion.
You know, is that really the right number?
Yeah, and you can always these are tough calls.
Then this
I think
whole
one of the
A scale, B scale, C scale thing, is that a meaningful difference?
It's just an A scale and a C scale. That's all you have.
It can be. I mean, I don't know that y'all have, I hate to keep bringing up my other clients, but Folly has a very big issue with that because we have some clubs that have loud bass-oriented music that you can hear through the walls of a house that's half a block away. And we have to deal with that. But you start talking about a much more technically oriented ordinance, which we can do, but it's going to be longer, and it may even require special equipment to measure that.
With the A, we have a reader, but you will have to get into special equipment. And when I was with my former, we just used the A, and even with an A, we sometimes had to bring out a sound tech. Sometimes it can get really,
That's my
But I
experience.
think one of the, if recall, Dan and Mary Ann, the reason why I think, and Joe, the last council, we went at 60, we went around and did various readings.
Right.
That's right.
Because this started off with
The timbers.
dune site and timbers. It really had to do with maintenance equipment running. And what we realized
Right.
that we go to Sandcastle, or we went to the resort, and we put up the decibel, just about everyone. And then we went to private residents who had large systems. We said, if we lower it any lower, we will have half the island, if not more, in violation of our, of the
So it was noise
decibel
about the
limit.
mechanical equipment.
That's how it all
That was,
started, with
yeah.
dune site and timbers, and we were listed mechanical.
Back
we
in
lit-
2020.
We listed commercial mechanicals, went to residential homes and listened, and realized that, at nighttime, it's always gonna be amplified. And so if we were to lower it, we could potentially be writing tickets to 3/4 of this island, because they would be in violation.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why we came up with the 60 at the time, just to give you a little bit of background in terms of how we came with that number.
Wow.
Because it dealt with more mechanical, it dealt with, band noise or anything like that.
Yeah, there were quite a few I do have that sheet,
Yeah.
and there were quite a few readings over 50 from just the
Right.
mechanical,
Just the mechanical equipment.
Wow.
including 100 feet from the source of the sound.
Right.
Dan,
51.
I don't disagree with you about, we don't want to legislate or over-legislate. But then basically what we're saying is that during the day, it's free game. If you're uncomfortable, you can call and someone will go out and they may say that it is or isn't too noisy. And if they say it's too noisy, then I suppose they can write a ticket or, and then
They would have, and
the
goes through
folks at the
court.
sandcastle, whatever, can say, we don't think it's too noisy, and we're gonna,
Challenge
and challenge it,
Go
and
forward.
then instead of us providing, not guidance, but some, then it'll be adjudicated, and somebody will say, but, you know, by that time, it's well after the fact. I don't know what else you can do. You can't tell people that they can't complain, and we're not setting a guideline in terms of the folks that provide the commercial business. So if we don't do that, then it's just, I don't know that comfortable enjoyment and ordinary sensibilities, and, you know, then you're just, as a resident, you have the prerogative of saying, you can complain about too much noise, and we'll have somebody go out there and take a look at it, I suppose.
But I think the expectation, though, we don't set is that it's up to the officer when they go out there to determine if they want to write the citation or
Right.
not. I'm not sitting at my desk and saying, you go out there and write the citation.
That's right.
I would say go out there and they would have to
Make a judgment
make
call.
a judgment call, and if they write the citation, they write it and then go through that process, and they may decide, no, they don't think it's a violation, and they don't write the citation.
But if they write the citation, it's a ticket,
It's a ticket.
which can be challenged.
They can be challenged, they can pay it, or they can, if
can
the
go to
court
court.
date is set, they come
Right.
for the municipal judge, and they can, and then it's essentially the complaint.
Judicially resolved,
Yeah.
and that happens
Joe,
every day.
this is crystal clear to me. I think you've done it, buddy. You just, God, we have this for discussion.
Yeah, me too.
I come back again, I suppose, with some other, I don't know.
What would you like for us to do? for
Yeah.
this?
Well, one of the things,
We'll
I-
clean this
one of the
up.
things I heard in the citizens' comments is, have we actually put this side by side with other coastal communities such as Hilton Head and that sort of thing, and compared to noise ordinances?
Yes.
Okay.
And the Hilton Head, here, I've got them right here. I hear you. But I just so you get a visual here, and I'll pass it around, get an idea of what Hilton Head and Myrtle Beach's noise ordinances look like, because they're 8 pages long.
Okay.
I'll be a minute.
I mean, and not to mention,
One of the things, Hilton and Myrtle Beach too, you're looking at it, they're dealing with nightclubs, they're dealing with
Right.
a whole
Right.
different other things. that
exactly,
don't
that's
have.
why they tend to be, and this
It's
is,
much more longer, 8 to 10 pages.
and I got
You're dealing with parades. and-
Charlotte's
Oh, okay.
noise ordinance, same way. I mean, they have a lot of moving parts here.
I had a community that dealt with bands, school bands and parades and,
Yeah, they have specific sections for machinery, lawnmowers, and blowers, specific sections for amplified sound, specific sections for music at commercial establishments. Getting a permit for additional amplification at events. These are all options if you
Well,
really want to
It would be helpful.
dive in.
I would be interested in what Cape May, New Jersey, Stone Harbor, New Jersey, Point Pleasant, New Jersey, I don't know, a coastal community like ours in terms of what theirs are. What Charlotte does, and honestly, what Myrtle Beach and Hilton Head do is
Yeah.
because of all of those things. But just in terms of additional fact gathering, where there's residential communities and there's commercial businesses housed together, or not housed together, but and then
Coexisting.
coexisting.
If we have additional thoughts, can we get them to you?
Yeah.
or to
it
Joe?
was good to me, yeah. One of the communities I was thinking about, I'm not sure, Sea Island, Georgia, trying to think of something that may be more, that may have
Yeah, Sea Island.
more resort, not just commercial, but more resort
Yeah, I mean-
residential mix.
This can't be it comes up again.
And what were the New Jersey one?
Well,
you-
I just
I
ones that
think
I'm,
it's
just ones that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I mean,
Sea Island,
they're just,
Georgia's one. And we'll come up maybe with some others, you guys can think about some other like communities, not, the city of Charleston would not be an example because they're in the city.
And then I guess my only other question is, in a lot of our municipal ordinances, we actually define within the ordinance what the fine is or the penalty is, and then how it's going to be enforced. And that-
Some of them we do,
Huh?
yeah,
That is certainly something a lot of people do.
Also to the officer, because the officer can write a ticket for the bare
Right.
minimum if they go out there numerous
Yeah,
times.
I will tell you what's happened on Folly with that, because we have a 3 strikes and you're out for short-term rentals, you lose your
We
license.
have that
Well,
here.
we have that too.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
a lot of times that influences officers, for better or worse, to just write a warning so they're not giving them a strike.
Okay, well,
Um,
thank you,
it's-
Joe. We can still give input to you, Stephanie, and to Joe? Okay.
And,
I- Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, when will we talk about this again?
Well, I mean,
I have to look at the mayor, and we won't put on the agenda.
yeah, we can, I think this was a good discussion, and I think as we did last time, you know, if there's other, if members of the community have some final words they'd like to add, get as much input as we can on this thing. We want to do the right thing, so does anybody would like to say anything further? Sir? Sure, please.
I'm Roger Warren, and I live at 8 Sand Alley, and I'm president of the resort. And obviously, this discussion is of really important to our operation and so forth, and I'll give you a little bit of history. I think it was about 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, we had a complaint. In fact, we had a complaint filed for a noise ordinance out at violation out at Mingle Point. And we had challenged it with the municipal court judge, and the municipal court judge threw the case out because it was, in his words, unconstitutional, based on the subjectivity of what was there. And so, and I don't think that there was anything done with the ordinance until what you did recently from that time, because there wasn't any real noise ordinance that was being used. And I would just say we're probably the single largest organization that has activities in the evening that would perhaps be something that someone would want to take issue with. And I've been here 19 years doing it, and I think that our philosophy with it is we've understood what the sound limitations were up until 11 o'clock, and we've worked very hard to cooperate with the neighbors and the community and everything so that we were in compliance with it, because we understand our role in the community to not become one of those habitual problem people, and so we've worked at it. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, we've only had a few complaints this year from the same location when we've had weddings out at the Ocean Course. And frankly, I'm not surprised, because with the growth of Ocean Park and the people, more homes in proximity to the Ocean Course, I'm not surprised that more people are aware of the weddings that we have out there and the music that's there, predominantly when we have them outside. Then we're aware of it, and we understand that the clubhouse itself, when the wind's blowing out of the south or southwest, acts as a real sound block, frankly, for most people out there. And I remember we were also drilling a new well for the Ocean Course, and this is when this 60 decibel thing came out. And we came and said, we know this drill is going to have a louder noise than 60 decibels at the site. So we went to the end of Ocean Course Drive, where High Point, or whatever that road is there, and we measured the decibels there, and it didn't measure on the decibel meter that above 60 decibel equipment drilling at night wasn't impacting the homes down there based on the decibel meter. So I'll go on record with you now, we want to work with you on this. We want you to be comfortable in your home and not feel like that what's happening there is, disturbing your life. But yet, we have a business that's a very important part of what we do, and the weddings are an important part of it. So we'll find a way to work with you, but I may ask you to come over sometimes and talk to the mothers of the bride about the music going down, because they're the ones who are really driving. That was an attempt at humor. It failed, but I'm sorry. So we're willing to work with you on it, but I think that if you think about the decibel level at 60, and I read the same thing online that you did, Doctor, and you could be sitting on your back porch, and if your porch is close enough to your neighbor and you're talking, someone could claim that you are violating the noise ordinance at 11 o'clock at night, and you have to ask yourself, is that reasonable, and is that the intent? And we would be happy to work with you on something that is reasonable and hits the intent, and work as we go through it to make sure it's something that everybody can live with.
Thank you, Roger, very, very much.
Mr. Benham, like to-
Oh, yes, sir.
First of all, thank you all very much for your intention and understanding about this issue. I've tried. There are things that the ocean course can do. You can put soundproof tents up. They exist. You can put your speakers facing the ocean. There are a number of things that I've talked to your staff about that have fallen on deaf ears. And excuse me, I don't like to be in my house and hear it bass at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock when it ends from your weddings. I want for you to be successful. And to your point about, gee, didn't you know they were going to have these events out at the ocean course? Well, you know what? I read the existing noise ordinance. I expected for it to be enforced. There is essentially no noise ordinance on this island between 7 and 11. There isn't. They could have noise at 150 decibels in theory, or that was ludicrous, but whatever the right number is. And it's up to me trying to convince an officer this is good or it's bad, or my neighbors. We've called. I've had neighbors call. And all we're looking for are what are the reasonable standards? What would you want next to your house? And it's not the people on the porches talking to each other. It's a construction crew next to you that's blasting a radio all day long. It's the renters out by the pool that have loud music going on. It's the people riding by on the golf courses, on your golf courses, by the way, blasting music up and down the fairways. It's not unreasonable that you can be in your house and have the enjoyment of your property without being subject to that. That's all. And I would love to sit and talk to you. I want for you to be successful. If you're successful, this island's successful. I just don't want your success to come at the expense of people who live here. There should be a partnership here. We should have both things in mind. But there are ways you can run your business to mitigate this problem, and you've chosen not to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Stephanie and Joe, when we think you're ready, we'll have another discussion. We'll either have it completed for an ordinance or not.
Maybe I'll include some of the examples from smaller towns and some ideas maybe that we can talk about some more specific.
The only other, there's experts in this whole thing. There are people that make a living, bands and equipment and things like that. It would be interesting to get some feedback from them in terms of, sound levels, velocity levels, how it's transferred. I don't know. Maybe people on the Arts Council that deal with these type of things. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's ways in which we can get some definition. Okay. Okay.
Moving on with our lives now.
Amen. Amen. Wildlife Office expansion. Who's going to speak to that?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to pass this out to you all real quick. This is, we just got this today from the architect. These are the
Thank you.
estimates that they put together for us of what this is going to cost. And again, these are estimates.
Yeah.
And I'll go into further detail.
Talk on the number, because we're gonna do some things with them to get back on.
So you can take a look at that right now if you want, but I have, dissected it a little bit. Right here. Right, you see the total cost down there came out to 240. That's it. So that is obviously that's a conservative estimate. That's got the market volatility involved in that number as well. Contingency, overhead from the contractor, things like that. So
When you say conservative, you mean the highest?
that's
like
high.
right.
That's high. That's a high estimate. So what we did after discussion with the architect, Jim and I got back together and we kind of broke this down. So the most important part of this is to get 2 offices in the garage for the wildlife department so we can open up room up here in the main building. Excuse me. Thank you. I forget that it's on. It's part of me every day. So the most important thing is to get 2 offices in the wildlife, 2 offices in the garage for the wildlife department so we can open up some space up here for incoming staff. Because of that, we kind of broke this out into a couple different parts of this project. We're gonna have the office expansion as the main part of this project and have some of the other pieces as add-ons. Should we get some really good numbers back from contractors, then we can look at adding this on to an immediate part of this project. Breaking it out, the office based off of the numbers that we got back on this estimate, the office expansion comes in at about $132,000. The new car wash area is going to come in about $29,000. The secured outdoor storage, where the existing car wash area is, that's going to be $14,700, and then the bathroom renovation about $5,500. So breaking it out that way, we're looking at about the office expansion to get 2 offices out there is going to be about $133,000. Again, based off of the numbers that they gave us in this estimate. We did budget $150,000 for the garage renovations, so we are within that to get the offices out in the garage. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
So is your intent to, when you request to solicit bids, is that looking for us to say yes, go solicit bids?
Yes.
Would you ask them to bid it in those 3 components?
What we're gonna do is we'll ask them to bid the office and have the other components priced or itemized out, basically separated out.
When they come back, they should give you 3 numbers.
We should have numbers for all 4 of those: the office, the bathroom, the new car wash station, and the secured storage.
Gotcha.
So that way it can be up to you all if we want to do 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Pretty simple.
Said another way, Brian, from what you just summarized, then what is excluded?
I'm sorry.
So if you just
From-
summarize what's extra, so the extra is
Excluded.
Oh, right. So again, the main goal being 2 offices down there.
No, I know that, I understand what's included, but what is excluded from this 234 number? I haven't gone through the detail.
Yeah, the numbers you just gave said up to $186,000.
Right,
Where's that $40,000?
where's the delta?
That is overhead. We took out, they factored in overhead for the contractor at about, it was going to be like $50,000. So we didn't put that in to
Won't
these
they?
numbers. I'm sorry?
Won't they?
We don't know. I mean, overhead ranges so much between contractor to contractor. If there's a bigger contractor that bids, the overhead's going to be a lot higher. If we can have a smaller local contractor.
LS3P, when they had their cost estimator do this, he said today in our meeting, he's like, we don't think the overhead is gonna be that much, but what they do is very conservative based on the fact that material is very hard to get, contractors are really busy, but if you all can then find a local or smaller contractor, you probably won't have that. So our goal is to separate this out, put it out for bid, but we have about 3 contractors that we're gonna submit this to that we believe will not have all that overhead.
So it's not a critical
Right.
part of the project
That's
that
correct.
was cut. It's more
Yeah.
a presumption that we're gonna be able to get better.
Right,
Right.
it's a fudge they put in, and they said
Right.
essentially they put a lot in there. They
Okay.
just don't know. The cost estimator just is like, we don't know right now because COVID, everything's crazy.
Okay, so you just want our,
You gotta go get bids.
We just, this was to give council a ballpark, and ultimately give us the blessing to send it out and get some real numbers back for you all.
is everybody in
I
agreement?
agree.
In the absence of real numbers, I can't make a decision, so.
Yeah.
He's gotta go get
Yeah.
bids.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Go out
Okay.
for bid.
good. Thanks, Brian.
Thank
Can
you
I have
all.
a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved.
You guys would, I think you have to read for the purpose of why you're going to executive session, just read that.
Yeah, it would, just the,
And then you have to give
Generic.
information about how long you think you'll be in there for the.
okay.
4 hours.
It's concerning a personnel and contractual matter related to annual review of the town administrator.
Oh, my.
It won't take long.
You want me to stay out here, or you want Joe to go in?
you won't be in there? You don't necessarily need to have.
How long?
I hope not long. Maybe.
Probably what happened is I was trying to serve and then forgot that I was so.
Are we still scheduled for next week?
Oh, yeah.
not, we got rid of that. Anything, yeah, I think we've got the same thing here. But the subjective thing doesn't, it's not Any sound that crosses the property line is a violation, which is what it used to be. So we came up with this language, and it's, yeah, I know exactly where it's going. I mean, but I'm not, there's no, I hear you. Low country sound travels. I mean, it's amazing how close. I mean, you can hear, I live on the Marshalls, sometimes we can hear it miles away. Because it just travels down the river, out into space. There you go. And I just got it. They're talking about this on the Municipal Association listserv. The what's I've forgotten her name now. She's an attorney for Adams Farms in Mount Pleasant, and she's dealing with it too.
over, that's the first thing they get to. It was nice, you know, I'm really trying to come to grips with my experience. The thing was, used to be, those houses just sat empty. It was just people using it. Now, it's so easy to monetize it. That's what everyone's doing. So we live on a residential block because we have 60-foot bases. So permanent residential families. And then the other two houses are kind of empty. I'm just sitting now, half of this now, they're short-term rentals, so it seems like we're being.
Every week or something.
But it's really someone just deciding, well, we can't just let this out.
Yeah, right.
And it's my next door, the house next to us. We moved there, family living there. Eventually they grew, went through 2 generations. And it had been empty. Except for about 2 weeks out of the year. So now someone bought it. They lived in it, renovated it, and they sold it. We got short-term. This is a really nice one. They're going around our neighborhood, buying houses, doing the things that we live in it for 2 years to do the.
Yeah.
So contemporary, whatever.
But I mean, it's,
And honestly, it's like,
and I guess you guys were saying that somebody moved or you guys were having
you gotta go out and hurry, but. Oh, yeah, that's right.
that just really.
Yeah, I saw those. But we have to.
Yeah.
It's good that we have actual real commitment with you. And so, they were talking about.
What was the burning bucket? Urban tasting set up throughout the nature area. It's sad. Yeah, we had just run out of nature. Look at health. I'm running.
The same time. You were working on ours.
We can work on. I think a lot of that.
There's still some not within council or staff, which is not more than anything. I know. Cheaper, bedroom plus 2. Right. Some of them said plus 2.
I guess the lawsuit's supposed to be outside, right?
That really kind of restrict the number of families that's rented.
Oh, excuses.
And family, some. And then plus 2.
So the 4-wheeler's fun.
Now there's just extra pay.
And when you
You plan something to have you use the offices.
But,
Like a nice, we need to do like some,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Could I have a motion to come out of executive session and move into regular session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussed the matter of our
Personnel.
administrator, our personnel matter, our administrator, and we approved the proposed contract. Well, we approved the contract. Town administrators report.
Yes, I have, Jim is going to do an update on the SGAs. And what else did we talk about? Oh, it's only Brian.
Brian's got an update.
Yeah, Brian has an update. I think also Jim's just gonna do the SGA update, and that was it, right? And I have Brian.
All right,
down.
afternoon all. Hey.
Jimmy?
So yeah, just a quick update on, I guess, the Clemson study and kind of where we stand with Bobcats and SGAs. I'm sure all of you know that this week is Save Kiowa Bobcats Week. So Stephanie's been pushing out a lot of social media content, which has been pretty well received and generated a lot of interest. We've also did an interview yesterday with ABC News 4, which will air tonight on the Kiowa Bobcat issue, which is good. So hopefully that'll get some more, eyes on this issue. So we continue to test animals, looking at anticoagulant concentrations. We are seeing a decline. It's not drastic, but we're seeing lower levels than we were 6 months, a year ago. So that's good. It looks like our bobcat numbers are rebounding a little bit. We had some pretty good reproduction this year. Getting a lot more sightings from residents, especially of females with kittens. So I'm hopeful that we've made, all of our efforts have made a difference. And so I guess the last thing on that issue is the Clemson research project, which we've been talking about for many months now. So you all met Megan and the research crew a couple of months back when they were here. So Megan's officially at Clemson now. We're working on her detailed research proposal, which we should have by the 1st of December. I was asked to serve on her committee, which is good, and I'm glad I will get to do that. So I will be very involved in all the decisions regarding the project and how the data will be analyzed and that sort of thing, which will be good. And so, we're getting ready for field work to start in February. So ordering collars and traps and getting everything ready to go. Funding wise, we still have not received any additional funding commitments since the last time I talked to y'all. The two big ones that we're waiting on are the Community Association and the Conservancy. The Conservancy is not going to make their decision until they see the full proposal, which again we should have in December. So then after that, the Conservancy will have their board meeting and discuss it and hopefully come up with a dollar amount. I'm not sure where KICA stands.
They have they've directed their COO Shannon to put in a placeholder for their next year's budget of $25,000, but they're waiting to see kind of what the Conservancy is going to do in that proposal. But they put in a placeholder of $25,000, but it's not approved until they start their budget process.
Okay, so hopefully that would be 25 for the next.
Right now, they just did
for the first year.
For the first year, yes.
Right, got it. Any questions?
I just find it interesting. So the membership of the Conservancy, and I know there's talented people, but have the scientific background that they want to look at this, the science behind her proposal in terms of whether they support it or not? Is
That is correct.
wow. Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
And Mayor, if I can just, before Brian comes up, just back up for one thing on the action of the town administrator's contract. Is there a motion and a second to allow the mayor to negotiate the contract with the town administrator?
I so move.
I second.
I can't really make that motion.
All in
You guys have to make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the mayor be empowered to negotiate with the town administrator the details of the contract, and also be empowered to enact the contract when the negotiations are successfully concluded.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Brian? John, did you have anything?
I have to say that the triangles look beautiful.
Don't they?
Yes.
Filling out very nicely.
No, the triangles and the landscaping look beautiful.
Good.
We're gonna
Hey.
put a plaque on one.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, so just a couple of updates with some open projects in the Public Works Department. The new signs, they're gonna be going out on the Parkway. They're underway. Actually, the vendor has completed all of the work that he can do in his office. As we anticipated, lead time on the timber was was a little bit long. The distributor gave them 8-week lead time about 3-4 weeks ago, so we're maybe looking at the first week of November to get the timber in, at which point it'll get stained and they can start kind of fabricating the rest of the signs. So my conversation with the contractor, we'll have these signs up by Thanksgiving or before Thanksgiving. So that'll be a nice holiday treat for the rest of the island.
Yeah.
Since we've all become so aware of signs, I've been paying attention to our sign out here. It's kind of washed out.
It is.
Is it
Stained.
something,
Needs to be stained.
it just needs to be restained? Will it be stained the same?
Our monument sign,
Yeah.
we can definitely
Okay.
get that. Start with maybe a pressure wash or something,
Yeah.
and then stain as necessary.
Yeah, one side especially has gotten, I think the water hits it.
Yeah.
From the sprinkler, yeah, we can address that easy, no problem. So a couple of the items that we have out for bid currently, the landscape maintenance contract is out for bid right now, along with the installation project for the new plant material at Town Hall, and the Beachwalker Drive improvement. The pedestrian and bicycle safety project is out. Those are all currently out for bid, and the bids close this Friday. So we'll have a week to review and bring that material to the Ways and Means Committee at the end of this month. Any questions on any of those?
No,
Not
but
too much to update, but they're
Thank
working
you.
right now.
It
Yeah.
does, Brian. Everything looks very good.
I
Very
think
nice.
the maintenance they're doing on the landscaping, the company that installed it, is much improved over what we were getting before.
It does look good. I've gotten some real positive feedback from you all and from residents on the island. So they are bidding on that contract. So just to give a sneak peek. So,
Very good.
Dr. Parker.
Just a quick update on what's happening on the soil rail and the recycling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I have that written down here, and I completely forgot. We've gotten the approvals that we needed. The ARB gave us approval for tree removal as necessary. We have gotten Berkeley Electric has approved us relocating their entrance to the substation over to the front side, and then we've all but finalized formally.
Working with Southwest. I understand from Becky that their attorney and you guys are going back and forth on the lease agreement.
The land lease agreement for Sora Kestrel Court.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
The last thing had to do with taking out the clause with regards to the indemnification, and so I think they had came up with some other language.
From her. I thought it was, that's right, I'm waiting on her.
He had sent you some, because the guy, he had sent you some alternative languages I saw from last email. So just.
Okay.
Right. So pending that last little piece to the puzzle, the next phase is just to have LS3P come up with the construction ready design for us to send out for bid. We just want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before we put that out for bid.
Stephanie, Joe, your feedback from, they're not pushing back. It's just a technical language. Okay.
Yeah, it's just something that in our previous agreement, we had something in there that this municipalities cannot do based on South Carolina law. So you communicated that to the attorney. They did their research. They found out that yes, we can't.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I don't know that I remember getting back from her. Well, this is what we're proposing instead. I haven't seen their alternative.
Yeah, I just thought it was. We'll
But
look
I'm
it up.
gonna go look.
But I just thought it was just some language. I know he said he was traveling and that he was going to
That's
get that
right,
with you.
yes.
But yeah, no, there's not a problem. They're fine with
It's,
giving us that additional land and lease. The attorneys just have to work out specific language in the agreement.
there are some easy ways to get around the relatively minor problem.
And Carolina Waste has recently, it's my understanding, has recently indicated that they're not going to be doing any recycling other than cardboard. Is that true, and how does that impact the design of that facility?
So yes, it is true. We did get that update, and it's not going to impact the design at all because cardboard was the issue
Right.
primarily at the Kestrel Court site. So we are, the design always was to mitigate the cardboard pile up there. So that's not going to have any kind of inherent impact on that
They're
design.
not gonna pick up, other recycling?
Commercial.
It's
Oh, commercial,
that they're doing, which has impact on the resort.
yeah, sure it does,
Yeah,
on the golf course.
Okay,
thank you, Brian.
All right. Thank you all.
thank you.
Anything else, Stephanie?
No, sir.
Committee updates, anything, John? No. Mary Ann?
Yes.
Yes.
For public safety, I just wanted to let everyone know, in case you didn't hear, Chief Walls did retire. And on Sunday, she went back to Pittsburgh, where she will be living. That's where she's originally from. And she's been replaced by Ryan Knitzer, which some of you might know. He's really very, very good. And he's been familiar with Kiowa, so I'm sure he'll do a great job. He has big shoes to fill. Also, the fire company got $660,000 grant, and with that money, 20 of the fire members will be going to paramedic training. So not only will we have EMT training, but they'll have some paramedics too. And the last thing which we mentioned was discussed before, there is supposed to be an emergency response vehicle at the firehouse, which can be used when there is an EMS person to man it.
Very good. Very good. Dan, anything?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on, as all of you guys know, we have two sort of major road initiatives going on within the county. The most recent one that was announced that I'm sure you all read about is the extension of I-526. That's an important thing for our community, as all of you would expect. So I encourage all of our residents to comment. Their county is looking for comments in support of or in not favor of I-526. But for our islands, 526 would be something that I think is terribly important. The other one is the thing we're more familiar with, which is the Main Road Corridor Program, sections A, B, and C. C is the one that involves us the most. All of them impact us. But what we've been doing here in our town is there's been a task force that John Taylor has been leading that includes people like Paul Roberts, who's studied this problem for the last at least 20 years. Former Mayor Charlie LaPuma and I have also been involved. We've also been meeting regularly with Seabrook and representatives from Johns Island to see if we can come to some common ground on where we stand on these things. Between ourselves and Seabrook, we have a really good understanding of what we think is a good alternative to come up with that we think would meet our needs and help this community going forward. So we're working on that, and once that gets finalized, we hope to get it in front of both town councils and then get to the county and the county's representatives with it. So we're working on all that. I think a key factor in all of that is making sure that if we develop a better road system on the islands here, it will connect someday to 526, because if we plan our roads and we ignore that, then if 526 gets done, then, and we haven't connected to ourselves, we haven't really helped anything. So anyway, it's all being worked hard. John's doing a great job in helping us lead that, and he's got lots of work to do, and he's got a full plate. So thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Dan. Scott?
Yeah, the interagency ad hoc working group that I've been chairing, Kiowa Goes Greener,
Oh, yes.
is making great progress.
Good.
And Stephanie and I have been working on crafting a formal communication to the residents, which will go out later this week. We put the documents together. We have gotten it vetted and approved by all the different entities who are participating, which are the town, the resort, the club, KECA, and the Conservancy. And each of these organizations have committed to a multi-year timeline to do the things that they can do within their organizations to help reduce our carbon footprint. And it's a multitude of approaches all across the board. And I'm really quite pleased with where it's going.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Any other general comments, citizens' comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.